Hello everyone. Last time we have completed the chapter Chemical Thermodynamics. So today we are going to start a new chapter, that is electrochemistry. Now in electrochemistry, first I have to talk about dry cell, okay, the batteries. There a chemical reaction occurs in it which generates electricity. So there we can say that their chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. And whenever you hear this word electrochemistry, it is something related to electrical and chemical energy. Always do remember electrochemistry, that means what should come in your mind? It should be electrical energy and chemical energy, right? So you have also heard about electrolysis. What is electrolysis? Is breaking down of ionic compound by passage of electricity. Okay, that means what is happening over there? Electrolyte is broken down with passage of electricity. Over there, what energy is converted into what? Electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. Okay, so electrochemistry is an area of chemistry which is concerned with the interconversion of chemical and electrical energy. Please understand, here we'll see both the things, like electrical energy going to chemical energy and chemical energy going to electrical energy. So we'll define electrochemistry as the area of chemistry which is concerned with interconversion of chemical and electrical energy. Now over here, it makes possible to manufacture many essential chemicals. The preparation of NaOH, which is widely used in the manufacture of soaps, detergents and paper, is done by the electrolysis of NaCl. Similarly, the only means to produce fluorine is electrolysis, and many such electrochemical process comes under electrochemistry. Electroplating, electrorefining, all this comes under electrochemistry. Today the current research in electrochemistry is focused on the design of fuel cell. So in this chapter we'll understand the different electrochemical process, galvanic cells, everything will be seen in details. Okay, so first we'll understand about electric conduction. Now electric conduction means charge transfer. If charge transfer happens, there should be some conductor. So there are two types of conductors which helps to conduct electricity, or we can say to flow electricity. So what are they? Metallic conduction and electrolytic or ionic conduction. Now metallic conduction, by the name itself we can say metals are the example. That means there the metals will be used. Their free electrons will help to conduct electricity. Okay, that means what will happen over there? Metals being good conductors of electricity, their free electrons, that means mobile electrons will be there. Now the outermost electrons of metals form conduction band, and the electrons in conduction band are free to move. Therefore it will help to conduct electricity in case of metallic conduction. Now when we talk about electrolytic or ionic conduction, that means it will be purely because of the movement of ions. Remember, metallic is movement of electrons and electrolytic or ionic conduction is because of the movement of ions. That means what will happen? If any of the substance is dissolved in polar solvent such as water, what will happen? The ions will dissociate, and this ions will help to conduct electricity. So what are the examples of that? The weak ionic salts, strong or weak acids and bases are the electrolytes. Why electrolytes? They help to conduct electricity. Okay, so hopefully you understood. Now when we say ionic solids, they can dissociate into ions in molten state as well. Okay, so hopefully you understood the difference between metallic conduction and electrolytic or ionic conduction. Now remember one more thing, in ionic conduction what happens? There is transfer of matter from one part of the conductor to other because the ions are moving, remember over here. But in case of metallic conduction, it will be only movement of electrons. So whenever you hear electric conduction, two types, metallic conduction and electrolytic or ionic conduction. Metallic conduction will be because of the movement of electrons, and electrolytic or ionic conduction will be because of the movement of ions there. So now we'll understand about electrical conductance of solution. So for that, we know that according to Ohm's law, the electrical resistance R of a conductor is equal to the electrical potential difference V divided by the electric current I. That is, R is equal to V upon I. So the unit of electrical resistance is Ohm, which is denoted by the symbol omega. Thus we can say that the unit is nothing but omega, that is equal to VA inverse. How come it is VA inverse? Because the unit for potential difference is volt, and for I, that is electric current, is ampere. So the electrical conductance of a solution, which is represented by capital G, is the reciprocal of resistance. So I can say G is equal to 1 by R. That means what will be the unit of G then? The unit of G is nothing but Siemens. This is denoted by capital S. So I can say Siemens is equal to, since it is 1 by R, it can be also called as Ohm inverse. We are talking about the unit over here. So S, either it will be S, or I can say Ohm inverse, or I can say the unit is A V inverse, or it will be C V inverse S inverse. Now how we can say it is C V inverse S inverse? By the relation C is equal to A into S. Now what is C over here? C is the coulomb, A is nothing but ampere, and S is second. So from this relation I can replace A by C upon S. Therefore I can say that the unit is also equal to C V inverse S inverse. Now the electrical resistance of a conductor is proportional to length L and inversely proportional to cross sectional area A. So I can say that R is proportional to L by A. So I can say, now I will remove the proportionality constant. So it will be R is equal to rho into L by A, where rho is the proportionality constant, nothing but called as the resistivity of the conductor. So it is the resistance. If I want to define what is resistivity, it is the resistance of a conductor of unit length and unit cross-sectional area. Now how I define this thing? If I rearrange the equation, okay, so rho will be equal to R into A upon L. So if I say L is equal to 1 and A is equal to 1 meter square, I can say that resistivity is equal to the resistance of a conductor. What is our resistance of a conductor? When of unit length and unit cross-sectional area. Or you can just frame in your own sentence. It is defined as the resistance of conductor if the length and cross-sectional area is taken as unity. Hopefully you understood this thing. Now we'll understand about conductivity, which is represented by small k. Normally it is called as kappa. Okay. To understand conductivity, we know that G is equal to 1 by R. And what is R? R is directly proportional to length and inversely proportional to its cross-sectional area. So I can write it as G is directly proportional to A upon L. Why I can write it in this manner? Because R is equal to L upon A. R is directly proportional to L upon A. Therefore, since G is the reciprocal of resistance, I can say G is proportional to A upon L. Or I can say G is equal to K into A upon L, where K, it is also called as kappa, okay, is the proportionality constant called as conductivity. So if we want to define conductivity, I can define it as the conductivity of a solution is equal to the conductance of a solution if the length and cross-sectional area of conductor are unity. Hopefully you understood. Similar to resistivity, we can define conductivity. Okay, now if the conductivity of a solution of electrolyte is called electrolytic conductivity, which refers to electrical conductance of unit volume of a solution, I can also say that K is equal to G L upon A. I have rearranged the above equation. And what is G equal to? Reciprocal of resistance. So I replace it by 1 upon R L by A. So I can say, if I compare the equation, I can say that K is equal to 1 upon rho. What is K is equal to? K is equal to 1 upon rho. That means conductivity is the reciprocal of resistivity. Hopefully you understood this. Okay, now we'll learn the units of electrolytic conductivity. Okay, for that first we have to see the formula of electrolytic conductivity, that is equal to G L upon A. Now what is the relation of G and resistance? G is the reciprocal of resistance. So now we'll see the unit of each one in this equation. So length, the SI unit is meter and the common unit is centimeter. For area, it is meter square and the common unit is centimeter square. Resistance, it is ohm. In both the cases, SI unit as well as common unit is taken as ohm. Now over there in the formula, we should know the unit for G. What is G? The reciprocal of resistance. G is conductance and it is the reciprocal of resistance. So the unit over there, when we will substitute, it will be ohm inverse. Okay, now therefore what will be the what will be the unit of conductivity? It will be ohm inverse. I'll substitute meter in case of L and meter square in case of A. So 1 m will get cancelled, so it will be meter inverse. So the unit, SI unit of conductivity is equal to ohm inverse meter inverse, or ohm inverse is also called as Siemens. Conductance, the unit is also Siemens, so it will be Siemens meter inverse, and the common unit is ohm inverse centimeter inverse. Hopefully it is clear. And if it is asked what is the unit of resistivity, so it is very simple, because we know the relationship of resistivity and conductivity, they are reciprocals. Okay, so what will be the unit of resistivity? It will be ohm meter, and the common unit, it will be ohm centimeter. Hopefully it is clear. Now as we know what is electrolytic conductivity, we can find out the conductivities of different solution, but it was not suitable for comparing conductivities of different solution, as the one which is having higher concentration will be having higher conductance, and the one which is having lower will show lower conductivity, lower concentration will show lower conductivity. So to compare conductivities of different solution, they must have the same concentration. That was not possible in conductivity. So Kohlrausch introduced the term molar conductivity, which was denoted by lambda, so that we can easily compare different solutions and know which can conduct better electricity. Okay, so what is molar conductivity? The molar conductivity of electrolytic solution is the electrolytic conductivity K divided by its molar concentration. Okay, so lambda, that is nothing but molar conductivity, is equal to kappa divided by C. Okay, so what is the SI unit of molar conductivity? SI unit of K is equal to Siemens meter inverse, and that of C is mole meter raised to minus 3. Hence the SI unit of lambda is equal to Siemens meter square mole inverse, and the common unit for lambda is equal to ohm inverse centimeter square mole inverse. Please learn the unit of molar conductivity, very important. As we know, the unit of conductivity, it is very simple, ohm inverse centimeter inverse. So if we take into consideration the concentration, we just have to divide by mole centimeter raised to minus 3. So the common unit will be ohm inverse centimeter square mole inverse. Now the molar conductivity is the electrical conductance generated by all the ions in 1 mole of the electrolyte. So to simple to understand, what is molar conductivity is the electrical conductance generated by all the ions in 1 mole of the electrolyte. Okay. Now we'll start with the relation between conductivity and molar conductivity. Conductivity is represented by kappa and molar conductivity is represented by lambda. Kappa is a Greek alphabet. Okay. Now to begin with, first we have to understand that what is conductivity. Now conductivity kappa is the electrical conductance of 1 centimeter cube of solution. If I am saying V volume of solution is taken, in that thing 1 centimeter cube, in that thing what is the conductance of the solution is called as the conductivity there. Okay. Similar way, if we are taking the whole volume of a solution in centimeter cube containing 1 mole of a dissolved electrolyte, then the electrical conductance is termed as lambda, that is molar conductivity. The only difference between conductivity and molar conductivity is conductivity will give me the conductance of 1 centimeter cube of solution and molar conductivity will give me the electrical conductance of V volume of the solution. Okay. So I can say that lambda is equal to kappa into V, right? Whatever the conductivity into V. So each 1 centimeter cube, if I sum up and that is multiplied by the total volume, then it will be nothing but called as molar conductivity. So now I have to understand, I have to replace this V volume of the solution by the concentration term, then I'll get the relation. For that thing, I have to understand what is concentration of a solution. Now concentration of a solution is given by C, just random alphabet we have taken. So C mole liter inverse. Now I have to convert this into mole centimeter raised to minus 3. Centimeter raised to minus 3 is simply called as ml. So I am going to divide the equation by 1000. So I'll get in terms of mole centimeter raised to minus 3 or mole ml inverse. Okay. Now I know what is concentration equal to. What is concentration equal to? You all know that concentration is equal to N upon V. If I say volume V of the solution in centimeter containing 1 mole of electrolyte is reciprocal of concentration, right? C is equal to N upon V. I have taken 1 mole of electrolyte, so it will be C is equal to 1 upon V. So I'll get the equation over there. So V will be equal to 1 upon C, right? Whenever it is 1 mole of an electrolyte. Okay. So I can say 1 upon C is equal to, in what is C? From the above equation, I can write it as, it will be C upon 1000. So if I substitute the value over there in 5.8, it will become V is equal to 1000 upon C centimeter cube mole inverse. Okay. Now I'll substitute the value of V in the above equation, the first equation, lambda is equal to K into V. So what I'll get? So lambda is equal to K into, what is V equal to now? 1000 upon C. So my final equation over there is lambda is equal to 1000 K upon C. Very important equation. Sums are asked based on this. Okay. So hopefully it is understood. Next we'll understand the variation of conductivity with concentration. To understand this, first we'll write the definition of conductivity. So the electrolytic conductivity is the electrical conductance of unit volume of solution, that is 1 centimeter cube of solution, as we have discussed. Okay. Now what will happen on dilution? On dilution means the concentration is decreased. Okay, so on dilution, the total number of ions increase as a result of increased degree of dissociation. Now, for example, I have taken some volume of a solution. In that thing, I am adding water. That means I am diluting the solution, right? As dilution takes place, what will happen? The number of ions will dissociate more. That means the molecules which is there, it will try to dissociate more. As a result, the degree of dissociation is increased. But what will happen? The number of ions per unit volume of a solution is going to decrease. Because over here we are talking about unit volume of a solution. Please underline that thing. It is unit volume of a solution. Okay. So therefore, the number of ions in that unit volume will decrease if I am diluting the solution. As a result, I can say this results in decrease of conductivity with decrease in concentration of solution. That means I can say there is direct variation with the concentration. That means if concentration decreases, conductivity will decrease, and if concentration increases, conductivity will increase. Why it will increase? Because it is concerned about the unit volume of solution. Concentration increases, the number of ions in that unit volume will increase. If concentration decreases, the number of ions in that unit volume will decrease. Hopefully you understood this. Now we are going to understand the variation of molar conductivity with concentration. Now over here, first we'll define what is molar conductivity. The molar conductivity is the electrical conductance of 1 mole of an electrolyte in a given volume of solution. Now over here, please understand it is given volume of a solution. Okay, that means we are taking into consideration the total volume of a solution. Now on dilution, what will happen? The number of ions will increase. Okay, because we are concerned with the total volume of a solution. We are not particularly concerned about a specific ions in the solution. We are concerned about the total volume of a solution. So on dilution, the volume will increase. Okay, so what will happen over here? The molar conductivity will increase on dilution. That means it is inverse variation. That means concentration decreases, molar conductivity will increase. Okay, so that is what the increasing number of ions produced in solution by 1 mole of the electrolyte lead to increased molar conductivity. Understand, on dilution, volume increases. Dilution means the concentration decreases. So concentration decreases, molar conductivity increases. There it was direct variation, here it is inverse variation. Okay, now we will see the variation of molar conductivity with concentration in terms of strong and weak electrolytes. Okay, now over here you can see a graph of variation of lambda with square root of concentration. So when we plot a graph of lambda versus square root of C for a strong electrolyte, we get a linear graph. Okay, and for a weak electrolyte, the graph is not so linear. Okay, now you know that if I want to have a zero concentration, that is not possible. Okay, I can get the value of molar conductivity at zero concentration only from the graph. You just imagine how can I bring something to zero concentration, because I am going to continuously dilute the solution. So zero concentration is not possible for me. So therefore I'll plot a graph, and from the graph I'll understand the molar conductivity at zero concentration. Now the molar conductivity at zero concentration is given by lambda naught. Okay, that is called as the molar conductivity at zero concentration or at infinite dilution. So that value is defined as the maximum limiting value of molar conductivity. What is that? The maximum limiting value of molar conductivity. That means after that it cannot increase. That molar conductivity value will not increase. Okay, now you can see that in the graph, strong electrolyte is a linear graph. So after extrapolation of the graph, I will get directly the value of lambda naught. That is very easy for me. But when I see for weak electrolyte, the graph, if I start to extrapolate, it is not going to touch the y-axis. Therefore, lambda naught value for weak electrolyte cannot be calculated by using this. And Kohlrausch has given an equation for this graph as lambda is equal to lambda naught minus a into square root of c. Okay, now what is a? A is a constant. Now for weak electrolyte it is not possible. For strong electrolyte, lambda naught value is easily possible. So Kohlrausch has introduced a law for calculating the lambda naught value of weak electrolyte. That law is called as the Kohlrausch law of independent migration of ions. So this law states that at infinite dilution, each ion migrates independent of co-ion and contributes to total molar conductivity of an electrolyte irrespective of the nature of other ion to which it is associated. Okay, now therefore we can give this equation that lambda naught is equal to n plus lambda naught plus n minus and lambda naught of minus. Now where lambda minus and lambda plus are molar conductivities of cation and anion, and n plus and n minus are the number of moles of cation and anion specified in a chemical formula of the electrolyte. For example, if I say KCl, okay, KCl is my electrolyte, so it will dissociate as K plus and Cl minus. So this law states that each of the ion, what are the ions over here? K plus and Cl minus. They will independently move and contributes its value to the molar conductivity. That means there will be a specific value for K plus ion and there will be specific molar conductivity value for Cl minus ion. And similarly, if it is NaCl, then Na plus and Cl minus will contribute its own contribution. That means it won't be affected by the co-ion present. If I am seeing the molar conductivity of Cl minus in both the cases, KCl or in NaCl, the molar conductivity of Cl minus will remain same. Okay, so that is the meaning of that it migrates independent of its co-ion and contributes to the total molar conductivity. So if it is for KCl, how can I write it? The lambda naught value for KCl is equal to, there the charges, number of moles of KCl and n minus, that means n plus and n minus is 1 1. It will dissociate as 1 K plus and 1 Cl minus. So it will be 1 1 and lambda naught of K plus 1 into lambda naught of Cl minus. So hopefully it is understood nicely. It is very simple. Okay, if anything else I want to do, for example, barium hydroxide. Okay, what is barium hydroxide formula? It is BaOH twice. Okay, so lambda naught of BaOH twice will be equal to n plus. What is n plus? What is the charge of what is the number of moles of Ba2 plus over here? It will be 1 Ba2 plus 2 moles of OH minus. So the formula will be lambda naught of BaOH twice will be equal to 1 into lambda naught of Ba2 plus 2 into lambda naught of OH minus. Hopefully it is clear. Okay, now we will see the application of Kohlrausch's theory. The first application, it is used to calculate the molar conductivity of an electrolyte at the zero concentration. That is lambda naught of KCl is equal to lambda naught of K plus lambda naught of Cl minus. Second, lambda naught of barium hydroxide. So first you have to write down the dissociation there. It will dissociate as Ba2 plus 2 moles of OH minus. So number of moles of Ba is 1, of OH is 2. Therefore it will be equal to lambda naught of Ba2 plus 2 into lambda naught of OH minus. Any examples? It is very simple. If I say for example AgNO3. So lambda naught of AgNO3 will be equal to lambda naught of Ag plus lambda naught of NO3 minus, as the number of moles of Ag and NO3 is 1. Ag plus and NO3 minus is 1. Okay. Now, second application, useful in calculating molar conductivity at zero concentration or at infinite dilution of weak electrolytes from those of the strong electrolytes. That means we can easily calculate the molar conductivity at zero concentration of a weak electrolyte if we know the values of the strong electrolyte. For example, molar conductivity at zero concentration of acetic acid, that is CH3COOH, can be calculated by knowing those of HCl, NaCl and CH3COONa. Now, how is it possible? Now, how you have to analyze that CH3COOH can be formed by which two electrolyte? It can be formed by CH3COONa and HCl, right? So I'll add the molar conductivity value of sodium acetate and hydrochloric acid, and if I subtract the value of NaCl, that means I'll subtract the molar conductivity value of NaCl from the value of sodium acetate and HCl, I'll directly get the value of CH3COOH. Okay. The lambda naught of acetic acid is equal to what? Lambda naught of HCl plus lambda naught of CH3CONa minus lambda naught of NaCl. Now we'll see whether we are getting the value of lambda naught of CH3COOH by adding HCl and sodium acetate and afterwards subtracting NaCl. So you can see that lambda naught of HCl plus lambda naught of CH3CONa minus lambda naught of NaCl will be equal to its individual ions. Okay, by Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions. Okay, so I can write for HCl as lambda naught of H plus plus lambda naught of Cl minus. For CH3CONa I can write it as plus lambda naught of CH3COO minus plus lambda naught of Na plus minus lambda naught of NaCl. So it will be lambda naught of Na plus plus lambda naught of Cl minus, but minus is there, therefore both the terms will get minus. So it is minus lambda naught of Na plus minus lambda naught of Cl minus. Now after solving this thing, I will get at the end lambda naught of H plus plus lambda naught of CH3COO minus, that is equal to lambda naught of CH3COOH. So by using the strong electrolytes, I get the molar conductivity value of the weak electrolyte. Okay, so this is that equation. Now because lambda naught values of strong electrolytes like HCl, sodium acetate and NaCl can be determined by extrapolation method, therefore the lambda naught of acetic acid can be obtained easily. So Kohlrausch's law helps us to find out the molar conductivity value of weak electrolytes by using the strong electrolytes. Okay. So last small topic in this part, molar conductivity and degree of dissociation of weak electrolyte. So the degree of dissociation in terms of molar conductivity is given by alpha is equal to lambda C upon lambda naught, where lambda C is the molar conductivity of weak electrolyte at concentration C and lambda naught is molar conductivity at zero concentration or at infinite dilution. Okay, so next time we'll start with measurement of conductivity. So please do learn the definitions and the laws nicely and write and practice it. Okay then, bye.